Hi, my name is Victoria Vives Khuong, and I'm mostly known because of my martial arts videos. I'm also the author of several healing products, from music to meditation to online and in-person courses, so you can check those out at victoriavives.com. And now I would love to share this interview with Teal Swan with you. In this interview, we actually talk about themes that we weren't sure whether it is good to share it with everyone or not, and maybe if it would be good to cut off some of the information. But I would like for you to make that decision. So please view the video and let us know what you think. Let us know if you think it is okay to share this, if you would like more information about this. In my opinion, in my perspective, there are many reasons why this is essential to be shared. And I will be creating a video where I share the reasons why I feel that this is essential. So for now, please enjoy the interview and let us know what you think. Today we are here with Teal Swan in Utah. I'm so excited to be here for two reasons. One is that I feel that this interview is going to bring a lot of clarity and it's going to help you move into the next level. And the other reason is because I feel that I found my soul family as well in some ways, so it's exciting. And I would like to invite Teal Swan to introduce herself.
Hello there. I am Teal Swan, as she says. I'm basically an extrasensory luminary, so my job is to teach people how to find happiness and how to find alignment with whatever it is that they're desiring. And that's a different, I guess, formula for every single person, which is why it's so difficult to teach to a mass of people, is because you're going to teach to someone's specific vibration, and everyone's in a different vibration. People are just more or less a match. But I actually came out of 13 years of ritual torture, and because of that experience, and what I came into this life with by virtue of being born extrasensory, there's an awful lot of information which I know about this universe which I think might benefit people. And through my own journey, through healing, I guess, coming from all of that torture and being, frankly, very suicidal and not really wanting to be here, I found meaning to life, and I also found a way to find happiness. So it's really important for me that I am able to share that with the rest of the world, which is probably why I'm sitting here in front of the camera today.
Thank you. And would you share how that background in your life helps you also being a better teacher, and how the spiritual teachers are different today?
I think it's absolutely crucial what I went through, and it's like depending on the day. I mean, let's just be honest. It's not like you ever wake up and say, "Yay, I'm so excited I went through all of those years of torture." But I feel like without that I would not have had the level of compassion that I have today, and I also would not know what it feels like to be in the lowest of the low vibrations. Powerlessness, utter powerlessness, which is victimhood, is the lowest vibration which exists on planet Earth. And I could not reasonably teach somebody who is in a state of powerlessness how to come and close that gap between powerlessness and empowerment if I had not closed that gap myself. So a lot of my teachings come from personal experience, which is really what makes you the best teacher, let's be honest. It's really experiencing something which makes you able to teach it. So I think without my childhood, I definitely wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today, and I wouldn't have the understanding that I have today. And by virtue of the amount of suffering I went through, other people's suffering is quite easy for me to deal with. It's very easy for me to join people where they are. It doesn't scare me. I've spent most of my life in the shadows, and so I don't have the same amount of resistance to it that most people have. And it's really important, I think, because I mean, one of the reasons that I'm so incredibly open with my childhood and my story personally is because I don't think that it's beneficial anymore to have this idea of the enlightened guru in your mind when it comes to spiritual teachers, which is what has been the pervading image, public image, for spiritual teachers. It was sort of considered career suicide for a spiritual teacher to come out with all of their problems, to tell you that they're going through anything other than perfect enlightened bliss. And so we're selling people sort of a false pill in order to keep our own careers alive. And it's really damaging people, which is what you're starting to see now. The major change within society and within spirituality is that the teachers who are coming in now are starting to completely open up about their shadow sides. And the gap between the enlightened guru and the average follower or demographic that watches the guru is closing, which is very important, super important that we can relate to the people who are teaching us. Super important that we don't feel a lack of self-worth because we're watching somebody who's in this exalted state and we're not in that state yet. So it becomes a detriment to our spirituality when we think that somebody else is in a state of perfection and that we're trying to reach that perfection. We start to feel as if there's something wrong with us. So the major change that's happening right now, which I'm really spearheading, is the idea that you are perfect exactly as you are. Every single one of us, even the person who is seen as an enlightened teacher, goes through their own shadow aspects. Because obviously the only reason we're here, the only reason that life exists is because of universal expansion. And universal expansion happens as a result of contrast. By contrast, what we mean is what is unwanted. So even the spiritual guru, if they are alive, is experiencing that which is unwanted. And that causes negative emotion within the system. So it's not like we are sitting in a state of bliss 24 hours a day, and us perpetuating the idea that that enlightened state of exemption from the highs and lows of life is very harmful. So you're watching it disappear. I'm quite excited for that.
And I have to say, it's really empowering to see you sharing so much, because in my path, my path is the one of the wounded healer I suffer, and then thanks to that I understand, I can relate. And I feel that in part we are healing the collective, and it is good to show that instead to try to be perfect once again, and as if our life is totally perfect.
Yes.
So bringing that awareness and so that people can relate. And I don't see many teachers going out there and exposing themselves so openly. So thank you for that.
People have given me a lot of crap for it. I had a lot of people who were fellow spiritual teachers who were like, "You're literally signing your name to your grave. That's what you're gonna do." Because nobody wants to follow that kind of person. And what's interesting is it gives you a lot of faith in the human race, because what happened is exactly the opposite. It's like, what they were telling me is everyone's going to be like, I don't want to follow somebody who's not perfectly in alignment. I don't want to listen to a teacher who's got their own problems. But people have done exactly the opposite. I get emails every single day where they're like, oh, thank God somebody can relate to me. I don't feel like I'm just out here in this abyss in life and I'm the only one that has these problems. And watching your impact on, planet Earth makes me feel like even with all of the stuff I'm currently struggling with, I can make a change. I can make an impact.
Beautiful. And normally, I don't share fully about my experience or my perspective in life. I think because when I had my awakening, I thought I was crazy. My family thought I was crazy, and it was very hard to integrate all that I felt into this society. So I feel that I don't fully embrace what I know to be true. And in my last shamanic training with my mentor, I asked my guides, what can I do so that I can live what I know to be true? And what they told me is, speak about it, speak it. They told me, speak it, because when you speak about it, you will start bringing your truth. And as you were mentioning yesterday, so that I can be a positive influence instead to just become one more in this system.
Yes.
So today I would like to speak more openly. I feel that all of us, anyone on this planet is pure light, but we are kind of immersed in a soup that is like slimy, and we cannot see or feel that light anymore.
Yes.
So I would like to start diluting that a little bit, and one of the things is awareness. So would you share what you shared with me yesterday about where we met before? What is our association, our purpose on this earth?
We're going down the rabbit hole here. Well, basically, for those of you that are ready for the information, humans are not exactly alone on this planet. They have been aided by extraterrestrial species and multidimensional species for thousands of years. This is no joke. If you're part of any major religion, they have stories of people's interactions with extra-dimensional beings. But there are a great many here that are helping the ascension of mankind. Because of the universe expanding, obviously, there are points of expansion within this universe where more expansion is created out of those points than the points. And Earth is one of those. It actually is giving rise to more expansion than any place in the universe right now. And so it's captured the attention of pretty much every other species in our universe. And if you are living in a six-dimensional reality, many of these extraterrestrial races live in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th, 11th dimensional realities. There is not the perception of separation that there is in the physical human race. As a result of this, if you understand oneness, then a species' desire is ultimately your desire. So the human desire to find happiness, to find alignment, to know what they truly are, is a collective asking, which is being answered by a great many species around the universe. So it just so turns out that this is one of my colleagues. There is a group, the humans have given it the name the Intergalactic Federation of Light. It's basically like an intergalactic Greenpeace. So we understand that Greenpeace here on planet Earth, what they do is, like all kinds of different people from different races, from different backgrounds, from different countries, they get together and let's say they go save whales. This Federation of Light, as the humans call it, is an organization of beings who are extraterrestrial in nature, who possess a sort of love for whatever the greatest expansion is. And they go down to serve the greatest expansion, and right now that's the human race. And so a great many of them have come forward at this time in order to teach from their perspective, which is a much different perspective, how humans might come into alignment and pull their perspective into unity and into the utopia that they have been asking for collectively for so many years.
Thank you for sharing that. And what you mentioned about ancient civilizations or other people sharing about these stories about extraterrestrials, what I found out is my shamanic mentor, she's a Sangoma, and there is a man who is also a Sangoma, and I was watching some videos. His name is Credo Mutua, and he was speaking about aliens openly. He has had experiences with aliens, and these are stories that has been kept throughout the years, I mean, like from ancient times, and they are the keepers of these stories, and he's now sharing these stories in YouTube. So we see that this is not something that is now, it's trendy or anything.
Yeah, it's not new. I have an issue every time that I am called to speak on the subject, though, because there are a great many humans that are ready for this information, and there's a great many humans that are not ready for the information. So it puts you in a position as a spiritual teacher specifically to try to cater yourself to the demographic. There's a great many people who need information on how to live a happy life, and all of those practical real-life applications, who when you start speaking extraterrestrial, they switch off. And so you'll notice that I am not super public and super open about a lot of that aspect just because of that. It's because the people who need me the very most are usually the people who are the most closed off to that kind of information.
Interesting. And you know what, even myself, even though since I was small I've been like drawing extraterrestrials and totally passionate about all of this, it is so hard still for me to accept this, that I'm going to just give it a try, embrace it fully, and speak about it openly, which for me is challenging because I don't talk about this with my family or my friends or my students.
Well, you're really coming out now.
I am. That's true. And I feel, this society obviously is having us on survival mode. So it's all about how can I make money, how can I buy food, pay my house, and that is all root chakra, all survival stuff. So we really need to open to more information. And I feel that, even if you are not connecting totally with this, but maybe open your mind a little bit, enjoy the interesting facts. And even if right now it doesn't ring as true to you, I think it's a matter of being exposed to a truth. If we see every day the commercials in television, at the end we believe it. If we would see this information in television every day, at the end it would be normal.
Yes.
So we just need to open a little bit the box, and maybe in the beginning we find some things that resonate as true for us, some that not, but little by little, at least to have some information, because I think there is people out there that really needs this information.
Yeah, they'll find this. I've got enough people asking me to sink a ship, so yes.
Okay. So would you speak a little bit about the different races and different dimensions? Maybe also you mentioned we are indigo. So let's focus on that for a moment. Would you explain what indigo is and maybe what we are learning, because we are still learning a lot?
Yeah, so when we talk about these aura colors, the spiritual aura colors, what that means is that the beings who came down to planet Earth with those specific frequencies had the intention to put other people into connection with their own non-physical essence. That's all that means. So there you've got your blues, your violets, your indigos, your crystals, your rainbows. Those are basically the 5 major aura colors that correspond to the spiritual types. But it's a bit of a misunderstanding, because every single person is an extension of source energy, and thus every single aura color in existence is a spiritual expression. But it just so happens that because of that intention, obviously, a person, before they come in, based on the intention they come in with, is vibrating at a certain rate that when they come down here, as you know, we perceive colors here in the physical dimension. As the photons are bouncing off of the energy frequency in the person's aura, it will be bounced back and perceived by the human eye as a certain color. So each of the spiritual type colors have their own attributes. The indigos are known as the warriors. They're the ones that come down and pave the way for the rest of the colors. We were talking about that yesterday, because both her and I actually are indigos. And it's not exactly the most exciting existence to be an indigo. I was explaining yesterday that we tend to get into trouble because of our own resistance, meaning that we come down here knowing that we're going to break apart a system which is going to be very resistant to us. And by the very nature, that warrior energy is got a little bit of resistance inherent in it. And so when we come down here, usually we get beaten up pretty bad by the very system we're trying to change. Not many indigos live, actually, past a certain age. Same with crystals. Oh. Yeah, because of our resistance. So our whole challenge here as indigos is to come down here to learn how to align with what we want to see, with our grander vision, without resisting what we don't want to see.
Thank you. So regarding dimensions, would you explain a little the different dimensions and which races are in its dimension?
This is probably going to be the most difficult part to describe, because obviously understanding a multidimensional universe with a third-dimensional mind is kind of like, you know, trying to perform an operation with like a spoon. The mind is supposed to understand and dissect the third dimension. That's it, which is why we have to go out of body and extend our consciousness to understand these other dimensional realities. But the issue is, the minute we come back into body, the consciousness is now conveying that information through a third-dimensional construct. So even me using the language to describe it is going to take away from the true nature of what it is. But in general, there are a bunch of people that disagree with this, but in general, from my experience, after 11 dimensions, you can no longer differentiate between dimensions. So that's when we become oneness, and you're really with that mighty I am presence, which is unlimited, eternal. But all the way up to the 11th dimension, there are beings which belong to, I don't want to say belong to those dimensions, but they spend a predominant amount of their focus and energy in that particular dimension. Lyrans, for example, are an 11th dimensional being. So it's the highest dimension of all. And they are super interested in allowing people to line up with love specifically. Love is their #1 teaching. And then you've got Arcturians. You've got a bunch of races, so I'm not going to hit all of them, I can promise you. But the predominant ones we've got are Pleiadians, Arcturians, Lyrans, Andromedans, and Sirians. Those are the 5 that are the most focused on the human race right now. Oh, and Greys and Reptilians, but they're really not so focused on the human race for reasons. Yeah.
Okay, and would you describe a little bit how they look, and maybe talk a little bit about their planets or any characteristics that are interesting?
Okay, Lyrans, because they're from an 11th dimensional reality, everything that you experience of Lyrans is going to be created by your own mind. That's been their traditional way of coming down and expressing themselves to you. So, those people who manifest the guardian angels, you know, who perfectly fit with what their symbolic archetype would be, what they would be open to. That's the Lyran that's taking on an image that's going to help the person. It's very specific. They come down kind of like a guide. Many people who are taken out or go to the Lyran constellation experience their own interaction with their own thought forms, but in a positive way. So the best way to describe what the way that the Lyrans would interact with you is, like, for example, let's say that you had a dead loved one. If you went to the Lyran constellation, one of the Lyran beings would appear to you as a dead loved one, not as their true selves. But if you were to take a snapshot of what they look like outside of that projection, which they're so famous for, there are multiple races in the Lyran constellation. The two that are the most prevalent in terms of their interaction with the humans are the feline race. They look a little bit more like cats, and these very tall blue beings that are probably 7 feet tall, and they glow, very, very skinny, super long necks.
Beautiful.
Oh man, we're going way down deep, aren't we?
Oh,
I haven't been asked these questions before.
really?
No.
Do you want to mention more about the other races as well?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Arcturians are interesting because they're a 6-dimensional reality, is where they live, and they're all about oneness. So if Lyrans are about love, Arcturians are all about oneness. They always want to come down here and teach you about unity. It's their number one thing. And from these higher dimensional realities, expressing yourself into a physical 3D look is an option. It's not like they don't have bodies and they can't have bodies. They do. It's just an option whether you want to be in a body or not. And when they project themselves into bodies, Arcturians go from these very nebulous, like large energetic beings to being these very small, very green, they're the original green ones, beings that have these very large eyes, a lot like the standard greys, but they've got, like, the iris of their eyes is like a honey color. But
beautiful.
Yeah. I could go, see, this is the issue, like, the issue is condensing this information, because each race, you could write a book on, multiple books on any of them, the same as the human race. I mean, look how many books the humans have written about humans. You could do that for every single race, so summing them up is quite difficult, I think.
That would be a nice book to write.
Yeah, maybe.
And let's see, I have some questions here that I want to...
That's the funny part, because everybody says that I really want you to write a book on extraterrestrials. And
it would be very interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to everyone but me. Like,
oh, okay, well, then...
my fascination is always, like, how to, like, survive your life. And not just survive your life, thrive. It's been much more interesting to me, this process of, you know, how a human being goes from their most, you know, extreme difficulty into this exalted state, which is their highest potential. That journey is what fascinates the hell out of me. I'm, like, less of an informational person than I am a practical real-life application type of a person, I've noticed.
So would you like to share 5 things that people can do in order to accomplish?
5 things? You're going to limit me to 5 things?
Well, for now.
Oh my god. Okay, so 5 things they can do to what?
To bring more of that inner presence, more of that light instead, you know, to live with these limitations.
Step 1. You got to realize that your emotions mean something, which is what most people don't understand. Most humans do not, you know, most physical humans do not understand, basically, that their emotions are a guidance system. That's exactly why they're there. They are there to keep you in touch with your higher self. And so, if you have awareness of what you're feeling, then you always have access to following the better feeling thought, the better feeling action, the better feeling words. And if you do that, you're actually creating your reality the way you want it to be. See, most of us don't think that our emotions matter. They think they're an abstraction. Most people do not know what their emotions are. That's pretty sad, seeing as how you're living with them 24 hours a day. But if you understand that your emotions are a guidance system, and you understand that if you follow that feeling of relief or the feeling of happiness on a day-to-day basis, then your life literally becomes everything you could possibly want. It's like your emotions, your positive feeling emotions, are leading you in the direction of every desire that you have desired since the beginning of your life. So the step one most important thing you could possibly do to get your life on track or to be living the kind of life you want to live is to realize that the most important thing in your life, period, the end, is happiness. Go in the direction of it. So if you're working that job that you hate working and your emotions tell you you don't like working it because it feels negative, you have to go in the direction of your happiness. We can't live a life here where we're doing anything other than that. It's not an option, because when you are holding yourself that far out of alignment with your personal truth, with your personal desires, then you're actually prohibiting the energy from flowing from source energy through your body. You will experience illness. So it's like we could talk on a Fruit Loop level for as long as we want to, where I could say, well, it's really important to follow your bliss and joy, and we could sound like really self-helpy. But the sort of sad story on the flip side of that is if you don't follow what makes you happy, guess what? You get sick and you die. That's what happens eventually. You can't hold yourself out of alignment without manifesting some kind of illness, without manifesting some kind of tragedy, without manifesting something that's a match to that discordant vibration within you. So it's really not a joke that if you want to live the kind of life that you enjoy living at all, you have to prioritize your happiness first and foremost above everything else. That's probably...
That's fun. Sounds good.
I don't know, but... I don't know. Let's keep going. I'm pretty sure I'm going to...
Okay, so you want to go with another question?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to come back to this, because I like talking, as you know.
Sounds good. How you think can change people's life sound and music? Like, for example, I know that I'm very sensitive to sound, and all the noise in the city can be really damaging to me personally, and I imagine to many people. But also there is the potential of healing through sound. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah, sound healing is a majorly serious thing, and it's going to get even bigger because sound in and of itself is such a pure vibration. It affects humans probably second to just smell. Smell affects humans more than almost anything else, and sound is only second to that. It is a vibration. So each tone is a vibration. That vibration tells a story. So I was explaining yesterday that the most talented sound healers understand the idea of law of attraction as it applies to physical vibration. So if we understand law of attraction, what that basically means is that any vibration which shares the same space with something else must match the vibration. So you can't hold a different vibration than somebody else and share the same space. So if you are meeting someone, that means you're a vibrational match to them. We can use this to our advantage when it comes to the physical human body, especially. Thoughts and everything else as well, but it's the most understandable relative to the physical human body. So if we understand that an ailment, like a headache, has a vibration, let's say that that vibration of headache does not align, does not match the vibration of willow. So you've got a willow bark. Willow bark doesn't match the vibration of headache. It's a vibrational mismatch. So if you introduce them to the same space, one of two things must happen. Either the willow bark has to shift its frequency to match the headache, or the headache must shift its vibration to match the willow. But the thing is the highest vibration is usually the most solid vibration, and it is thus the one that's going to win out. So more likely, if you have a headache and you go sit down by a willow tree, you're going to have to either get up and leave, or your headache's going to have to get up and leave. So when it comes to sound, this is the whole basis of the idea that Native Americans had relative to the flutes that they made. They understood that certain plants have medicinal properties, and those medicinal properties are not restricted to the physical structure of the plant. They are also inherent in the sound that that plant makes. So if you, say, take a flute that's made out of willow bark and play that note, it carries the frequency of willow, and thus your headache is not going to be able to be a match to that frequency, to that sound. And so as you play that willow flute, the sound in and of itself is going to cause your headache to go away. And so we're talking about that relative to the willow plant and the sound played on the willow plant, but this is true of tones in general. Certain tones are not a vibrational match, I guess you could say, to certain ailments within the body. And certain tones cause areas of your body to respond, which is the whole basis of toning. So, so let's say you have a stomach ache. If you tone with your own voice, or if somebody else tones for you with a frequency which aligns with your stomach area, then what will happen is the frequency your stomach area is holding will be caused to vibrate at a more coherent rate, like the tone that you're introducing to it. So we can actually use sound to heal ourselves and to heal other people. And it's an incredibly strong, very strong modality, which we should be using more of, for sure.
Beautiful.
Does that make sense, kind of?
Yes, absolutely. And another thing is crystal healing. I know that
It works the same way. Crystal healing works the same way as sound healing. And rocks, minerals by their very nature, are incredibly solid in their vibrations. It's not like you're going to introduce a rock to yourself and the rock's going to just decide, oh, that person has such overwhelming energy, I'm going to just lose my frequency. No, they maintain a very solid vibration. And so when you introduce, let's say you introduce someone with depression to a citrine crystal, the person with depression will experience a lifting of those emotions because they can't be a match to the citrine crystal without some kind of a energy coalescing or convalescing, I can't remember which one, happening. So it's really beneficial to use crystals the same way you would use any other kind of a healing modality. At the root of everything is the idea that vibrations must match. So it works with people too. So let's say you're in a higher vibration than I am in. If I am introduced to your reality, either you have to go down or I have to go up. Or we have to match in some other way, which brings us together in the first place. So if you're in a high vibration and I spend time around you, most likely if you're able to maintain your focus, you're going to cause me to come and vibrate at a higher frequency. And obviously the higher frequency you're in, the less you're a match to any kind of ailment, whether it's a mental ailment, a physical ailment, or whatever else. So if I'm increasing my frequency using healing crystals, using sounds, using people, using whatever it is, then I am changing my frequency, which is really how we can help each other, is by offering a stronger, more coherent vibration than what the person is currently vibrating. And thoughts work no different. That's really where I do most of my work. When you introduce a thought is the most strong vibration there is in the universe. So by introducing a new thought to someone, it causes them to vibrate at a brand new frequency. And when they vibrate at a brand new frequency, they're a match to different experiences in their life, so on and so forth, till they are living the kind of reality they want. That's really the way that we close the gap between what we want and where we currently are.
And that also reminds me of the coherence of the heart, when we are able to harmonize our brainwaves with our hearts. Would you talk a little bit about the importance of the heart and just focus on
the heart is an interesting organ because it actually has like a ton of neurons in it. A lot of organs do, but the heart has tons and tons of neurons, meaning that it is almost like a miniature brain. And when you watch a human organism, or not even just a human, most organisms on planet Earth, when they form in utero inside their mother's stomachs, the heart is the organ that forms first. So it is basically your doorway to non-physical energy. So it's almost like the energy that is coming from these other dimensional realities comes to the heart first. The heart then communicates that information to the brain, which is a transceiver of information. That's all it is. Your brain is more like a computer. It receives the information and it relays it to the rest of the body. But because the heart is the very first organ which brings non-physical energy into physical energy, you can use that as your way to connect back to your true self, to non-physical energy, which is why there's been that sense throughout all of history of the heart really being the center of the soul.
Thank you for sharing that. Can we come back a little bit to extraterrestrial life and how it represents here itself? So the different kinds like starseeds or walk-ins or braids.
Okay, which one? That's like, we gotta get specific, because like the question is so broad that I could basically be sitting here talking forever not knowing what you guys wanted to hear.
Okay, you know, what I really wanted, if possible, would be that people can be able to understand the different kinds. So we can start with one and then developing. Go. Okay.
We'll do one. So which one?
Starseed?
All right, starseed is an issue because it's a term that was coined that now nobody really knows what it means. Basically, there are some people that think that a starseed is somebody who has had previous lives on other planets. But by that definition, everyone on Earth is, well, not everyone, most everyone on Earth is a starseed. Because it's like, you gotta understand that by this point in time, most of us have lived thousands of lives, literally thousands, physical, non-physical, in the other dimensions. Animal, plant, mineral, all of these. And so when you've got that amount of lives, the likelihood of you having a past life on another planet is like really, really high. So, so I'm not one of those that really subscribes to that idea, but you will hear a lot of people who say that a starseed is somebody who had previous lives on another planet. All right, so let's get rid of that idea. So if we look at starseeds in another way, what that looks like is beings who have been, I don't want to say seeded, but what it is that it's basically an extraterrestrial being who has chosen to project forth in a multitude of different ways into a human perspective so that they can interact with humans. It's almost like a channel from an extraterrestrial perspective into a human perspective. And when that human perspective interacts with other people, it's like the extraterrestrial itself can interact with other people for benefit or for harm, whichever they choose. So that's really how I look at starseeds. But there's a multitude of different ways that interaction can occur.
So for example, walk-ins?
Yeah, walk-ins. So let's say that you've got a physical... So usually, I wish I could just draw this diagram.
That would be awesome. I would love to have a diagram of all of this information.
Okay. I don't have a diagram right now.
I know.
Okay, so let's pretend that up here is non-physical reality. So that's source energy. That's when we are all one. Source energy projects itself forward through all of the dimensions into a third-dimensional physical human life form. But, or something else. So let's say that like from this perspective, you can project yourself forward into an extraterrestrial life form as well. But the thing is, when you exist on these other dimensional levels, which many extraterrestrials do, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th dimensional beings, they understand the way that the universe works and the way that mind creates reality to such a degree that it is no more difficult for them to project forth into a physical human body than it is for Source itself to project forth into a physical human body. So it would be kind of like if I was sitting here in my physical human form and I could project my consciousness to such a degree where I could grow a grass blade outside and I could be either perceiving this perspective or that perspective. Because the grass blade is now the extension of my consciousness. And that's beautiful. Quite easy for extraterrestrial species to do. So with a walk-in, you've got non-physical energy that is projected forth straight into a physical human form. But that physical person, usually through a traumatic injury or something like that, sometimes it happens in utero as well, where the soul stream, which is participating in that perspective, that human perspective, chooses to withdraw. But simultaneously, a projection from an extraterrestrial being will choose to come forward into that perspective and take over. And it's an instantaneous transfer. And that's called a walk-in. So that's usually what has happened when somebody, say, gets in a car wreck, comes back, and is an entirely different personality. And their whole aura will change and everything. It's quite impressive to watch. So that's just one way that they can come in. Another is a soul braid. What a soul braid is where you've got non-physical consciousness which is projected forth into a physical human being, but there is an extraterrestrial being which has now projected its energy forth. So instead of that stream that was originally there withdrawing, like it does in a walk-in, it stays, but the extraterrestrial consciousness now braids with that consciousness, and so the person experiences being two types of consciousness. It experiences the direct physical human consciousness and also an extraterrestrial consciousness together, unified, sometimes not so unified. Sometimes it creates a lot of confusion. And the thing that gets even more confusing is that you can have multiple soul braids, meaning that some people have 8, 9, 10, upwards of that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. But obviously it benefits the expansion of a lot of beings to participate in certain perspectives. So I was explaining earlier that when you have like a teacher, someone who's world famous, like a Buddha or a Gandhi or a Jesus, it's quite common for multiple perspectives to participate in that one perspective. because of the amount of expansion that's coming out of that. It's like, well, a lot of learning is going to be had, from this perspective.
So Jesus, for example, in your opinion, what would it be? Like a combination of several...
Jesus was a Pleiadian. Yes.
Mm.
Oh, and then I haven't explained the soul fork yet. I'm explaining basically the most common ways to come in. Obviously, there's going to be a ton more variables, because in this universe, we all know there's exceptions to every rule. So we're getting I'm just skimming the surface. Another common way, which is the most, I think, when it comes to teachers, this is the most common, is when somebody is a soul fork. What we mean by a soul fork is, there is a non-physical, okay, we've got source energy, non-physical, we're all one. It projects itself down into an extraterrestrial being, and then the extraterrestrial being projects itself forward into a human consciousness. And so the human consciousness, the human perspective, is literally an extension of the extraterrestrial perspective. It's not like it has braided with anything, it's not like it has taken over for anything. It has literally projected itself forward to such a degree that it has created an intention which has now attracted a sperm and an egg. It's now attracted the whole entire experience. And so the extraterrestrial being has in essence created a secondary life. That's the most common way that teachers come in from extraterrestrial planets. And living as a soul fork is quite interesting.
Would you like to share what we are? Or
you can do that.
I can do that? Okay, well, I have to say I don't have such an awareness on this. I really came in with a lot of information and trusting a lot.
Which is more typical, I should explain. So hold that thought for 10 seconds. I'm going to explain something. Okay. It's more common that beings who come in that way will choose to activate a portion of their DNA where they actually forget their true origins. The reason that they do that is because if you come down here and you intend to teach somebody into alignment who's a human, but you're not fully human, how are you going to reasonably do that? You have to basically get lost in the system, get lost in the avatar to such a degree that you have to go through the process yourself and then thus remember who you truly are. Because that's really what we're all trying to teach people to do. As teachers, we're trying to teach people how to come back into alignment with what they truly are. So the only way we're going to teach that is if we come back into alignment with what we truly are. It just so happens that, sometimes when we come back into that alignment, what we find is that there is something in between us and source energy. Mainly an extraterrestrial being. So.
Okay, so yeah, I have to say I feel like I'm a little late on realizing about who I am fully, and it has been a lot of fear. But I did set that intention in my shamanic training, and it seems that everything is opening now, and I'm receiving the answers. And it was yesterday when I came here. I left everything in Los Angeles. I'm super busy, but I left everything. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning to be here. Then I lost the airplane. It was like a crazy thing, but I needed to come here and meet with Teal and also her people here to find answers. So she mentioned that I would be a soul fork, as she is as well, and my origin would be Lyra, and her origin is Arcturus. So, a lot to digest, but, it's like nothing else would make sense. When I arrived and I asked, am I from, she thought I was asking, am I from the Earth? And when she said, no. When she finally confirmed that, it's like I feel some peace, and I could feel here like at home, like there was somebody else here that is also from Lyra. Mm-hmm. She also made this amazing Lyra pendant. I don't know, it's like there is a point in our lives that we need to understand more our background, and that also can help us helping others. So hopefully if you're watching this.
I want to know.
Yes.
This would be interesting. How do you think that this information helps people? Because this is something which I've been trying to find my own alignment with, seeing as how I've basically done a good job thus far of trying to steer clear of these kinds of conversations. So I want to know from your perspective how knowing this helps you personally and how you think it would help other people.
Very much. One of the things is that, as I mentioned, when I came in, and most of my life, including now, I have an awareness of something greater, non-limited, you know. But the more I live in this society, the more I speak with people and I don't speak my truth, the more I get immersed in that soup that I was talking about, the slimy soup, and the more I forget, and the less I trust my wisdom. So I feel that if we just set to accept what is in this society, you know, the commercials, the media, the music, the television, supermarkets. I mean, we are surrounded by things that that are telling us just survive. You are just somebody meant to survive. You're nothing more than that. You are a sinner. You are guilty. You are not worth anything. Whereas each person is pure light.
Yes.
And I really would like to see everybody embracing that truth. And it's not, okay, if you are from here, it's more than being from there or anything.
That's my issue. Is that what I watch with people when we discuss extraterrestrial origins, is that everybody has this desire to be special, and so their wanting to be from somewhere else is a rejection of the humanity within them. And I watch that quite a bit with people, where it's like, we can't believe that anybody who is a great teacher could be from Mars. I feel like what I am trying to help people to do is to put them in touch with themselves, and it's a true aspect that if you are sitting here in a physical human being, what you are is physical human. And so our issue is that we're unwilling to embrace ourselves. Our issue is that we're trying to run away from what we truly are, and we keep trying to run away from what we truly are by trying to be from another place in the galaxy, and maybe we are and maybe we aren't. It's just that a person who is from another planet, who is currently coexisting in a six-dimensional reality, has every bit as much access to multidimensional information and every bit as much spirituality that is inherent in them as somebody who is a physical human who is just barely getting back in touch with the non-physical portion of their beingness. So I feel like it brings us sort of off track and makes us stray quite a bit from this connectedness that I want us to have with our bodies, which are human, with our earth, which supports the physical human. That was basically been my take.
It does make sense, and I love being human, but not what we are becoming because of this influence. And maybe we should talk a little bit about that, the influence from some forces that are not so positive. And it is not about being scared of them. I've been neglecting all of this for a while because, you know, I want to focus positively, but I think some awareness is important, and also some awareness of our own power. Every single person on this earth has so much power if we are able to connect with the land, to connect with each other. Like, this society divided us so that they can conquer us, but we can really come together in communities, connecting with the earth, connecting even with nature, the animals. And would you like to explain a little bit about these not so positive forces and how we can bring our own light?
The not so positive force is a negative belief. So if you want to whittle it all the way down, it is that a great many people hold aspects of fear within them which give rise to these negative thoughts and negative beliefs, which then create a wake of destruction. That's essentially what you're looking at when you're looking at war, when you're looking at rape, when you're looking at illness. Any of it is a byproduct of negative thought, first and foremost. And that makes you a match to a great many forces which are capable of putting you in a victim place. But what we don't understand is that the victim, nobody likes it when I say this, the victim is every bit as much responsible for what they experience as the perpetrator is, because we are the ones who are putting ourselves, by virtue of our thoughts, in a vibration which make us a match to a perpetrator. So because we are vibrating at such a frequency of fear here on planet Earth, we are a match to victimization of each other, victimization of other races within the universe. The list goes on and on. And what's really important, I think, more so than really becoming educated on what exactly is out there, 'cause trust me, if you start to go down that path, what will end up happening is that you will end up getting depressed and feel even more valid in your victimhood. I've noticed this quite a bit because based on who I'm sitting in front of, I'll be talking about different information. So sometimes I sit in front of people and I explain to them what we're making ourselves a match to currently as a human race. And I don't watch people hear that information and then go to a good place with it, go to a place of, well, let's not go down that path, let's create something better. It starts to turn into a source of worry, and thus they make themselves more a match to that experience. So what I think is the most crucial is to understand that anytime you feel an aspect of fear, you are lining up with essentially that which you are fearing. And so if you fear corporate takeover, that's exactly what you're experiencing. If you fear extraterrestrials that don't have your best interest at heart, that's exactly what you're experiencing. And all of these things do exist within the universe, because every thought that's ever been thought does exist. So the most important thing that you can do relative to the powers that be, which we could talk about that all day long if you'd like, is to figure out really, truly what it is that you desire, and to line up with it in every way, shape, and form. I mean line up with it in your thought, line up with it in the way you speak, line up with it in terms of the way you live your life and what you do. When you do that, you can't be a match to anything other than what you create. It's not like your life out here, even though you perceive it as exterior, it's not really exterior. It is all a mirror of your vibration. And so if you're able to line up with what you want to see, then your reality must change to what you want to see. And we are unlimited, literally, when we are doing this, which is what most people don't understand. What I mean by we're unlimited is, let's pretend that there was World War III in the horizon. And you didn't want to be a match to World War III. If you focused on the perfect experience for you, a utopian society, you would have to experience a utopian society, because the third dimension is a mirror dimension. It's literally a hologram, which is created to mirror your thoughts to you. So there would have to be a subset reality created literally for you, or an extraterrestrial being would have to come pick you up and beam you off to another utopian society. You would have to be a match to some kind of utopian society. You could not be a match to a Third World War takeover unless you were already vibrating as a match to that experience.
You know, and one thing that I feel is also important that I realize more and more, my shamanic teacher focuses a lot on healing the lineage. And this really came very strongly for me lately, because I understood much better the patterns that my family and my lineage passed on to me. And I feel that we have such an opportunity to heal the collective through our lineages.
Yes.
So that we can change what we pass into our children and the society transform. So would you share something about this?
Hell yeah. So when you're in non-physical energy, choosing to come down into a life and you're surveying all of the potentials, what you're doing essentially is picking a perspective. And that perspective is a collection of everything that has come leading up to that. So it's a bit overwhelming, which is a little bit why we like to simplify it and say, look, your entire axis of power is from the present moment. It's complicated if you think of it other ways, because ultimately you are opting into the extension of the perspective of the very first being that ever existed in the universe. Everyone is. God, that gets exhausting, right? But like, so let's make it more simple. You, because of walking into this genetic code, are walking into the perspective extension of your great-grandparents, your great-great-great-grandparents, your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, and so on and so forth. Which is why you choose it. That's part of your whole selection process. It's sort of like when you go to shop for a car, you've got like a handful of things you want to have, right? That's what we're doing. We're essentially shopping for a perspective before we come into the physical human body. So like me, I'll just give you an example. My mother's side is Celtic witches. And so they're super in touch. Even their genetic code, if you look at it from a multidimensional perspective, is super open to multidimensional realities. So when I chose to come in extrasensory, that was a very beneficial choice for me to make, to come into those genetic constructs. But that perspective comes with an awful lot of resistance as well, because we all know what memories those beings held, you know. Wow, there's a really odd thing happening outside. Look at that.
Oh, wow. Oh, interesting, huh?
It almost looks like a comet. That is really creepy.
It's very interesting because for the first time, not long ago, when I started embracing all of this, I saw this big light crossing right in front of me, and I kind of ignored it. But then the person by my side said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yes, I did." So it's interesting. I think that, of course, our focus, you know, if we are
see, we're a match to this. This is a good example. So right now there's this giant, comet-looking thing outside my window. I'm like, really hope we're not going to blow up in a minute. But see, right now we're talking about what you're going to be a match to, and we're talking about all this extraterrestrial information. And so of course we're a match to seeing something like that. Our reality is being created by us right now. This is the mirror of our particular vibration. It's just like, do we have the power to recognize that or not? Most people walk through their lives and they don't even notice the synchronicities, so they don't actually notice the fact that they're creating their reality. So life just seems like a sequence of seriously coincidental events. You know?
Right, coincidental. And something that is also good to create awareness about is the powerful influence that we can have in the world. Since we are oneness, there is this meditation effect in which 7,000 people started meditating, and not like meditating really good, just normal people trying to do their best. And there was a 72% decrease in crime all around the world. So it doesn't take so much. If you get maybe with your family, with some friends at home, and just focus for a moment positively and meditate, you really can change the world. So it's not just, you know, that we have to all come together. It's just small groups can create this web of light. Would you like to share something about this, your perspective about that?
I think people are powerless.
What?
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. No, I obviously teach on a daily basis about the power of thought. If you understand that you are, and this is hard because here we go again with the third dimensional mind. If you understand that you are an extension of source energy, everything that you're seeing in this room is you. This is me, that is me, this shirt is ultimately me, everything is an extension of me. Then obviously if you understand that, then you with your thoughts affect everything else that is you. See? So a lot of people are saying, how can I have all this control over something that's not me? That's the issue. That's the illusion. The illusion is that the dog is not you, and that this person is not you, and that the rock is not you. It's all you. So if you change your thoughts, you're affecting all of it. And then you could say, well, how do I know? Well, then I'm obviously her too. So here I am. I'm her. Yeah. So if she changes her thoughts, she affects all of it as well. But obviously, if we are the same thing, we are all one, then we are all ultimately the only one doing this. See, that's very difficult for the 3D mind to wrap its head around, right? And also that involves that the dark forces in some way are us as well. Yes. And this is why I always, talk about the fact that if you would like war to end, end it inside yourself, which is not something that most of us are really even looking at. We would like to do something external to make ourselves feel better. We'd like to do something to end war out there. Yet, if you pay attention to internal monologue, we're at war with ourselves all day long, relative to all kinds of subjects. I mean, if you say, oh gosh, I'm retarded, I'm really stupid for doing that yesterday, you're at war with yourself. End of story. So you are going to be a match to some kind of conflict in the exterior level. So one tip for our listeners and viewers for stopping that negative voice inside? Well, the first step is to notice it. Most of us don't even notice it. It's just like we walk around and we're on autopilot and we don't even know the thoughts that are going through our mind because we're not in touch with our emotions. If you really want to know what you're thinking, tap into your emotions, because your emotions will give you 24 hours a day feedback as to what thoughts you're thinking. They will reflect the vibration of your thoughts. So if you tap into how you're feeling emotionally, say, well, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like a little bit of a letdown. What thought am I thinking that's causing that emotion? And once you hear that thought, you want to question it. So this is not about believing your thoughts. This is the number one causer of pain on planet Earth, is that we believe our thoughts. I'm no exception. I believe them all day long. When my brain says, you're basically stupid. Why are you out here teaching the general demographic when you can't even get your own life together? Like, I believe that thought. And then I feel bad. So what's causing us suffering is the fact that we believe our thoughts. So if you realize that thoughts just appear, that's all they do. They come up, they're here. It's not about believing them or not. Then you can develop enough distance to start questioning them, which is the most crucial thing you can do with thoughts. After you find whatever thought you've been thinking, you question it by asking yourself what kind of life you're living. Who are you? What do you feel like when you believe that thought? What might life be like without that thought if I couldn't even think it in the first place? And then you revert it completely. This is a really old spiritual practice, this idea of flipping a thought or reversing a thought. because of this old spiritual teaching, of course, that the opposite is also true. You don't know whether, or you can't really reach this state of pure enlightenment unless you understand that the opposite is also true. So if you come up with a thought like, I am stupid, you revert it to, I am smart. And there's a lot of reversals you can do too. You can reverse it back on yourself. You can say something like, or like reverse it by saying, I am making myself fill in the blank. So, I am making myself stupid. How is that true? The most important part is then that you look for items of proof as to that reverted thought being true. So, how is it true that I am smart? How is it true that I'm making myself stupid? How is that more true than my original thought, which was, I am stupid? And you'll find that, like, once you start that process of really questioning thoughts, then it's you observing the thought more so than it is your thought thinking for you, you know?
And I actually think I heard you had a process for that, and also you mentioned about Byron Katie.
I love Byron Katie.
She has an application, and I put it on my iPhone, and
she's walking.
It's really... Oh, really?
Yes.
Tell me more about it, please.
Well, okay, from universal perspective, what happened essentially is that when she went into this like extreme depressive stupor, she lost her desire to live to the degree that when she went to sleep at night, there was a withdrawal of her previous being that was participating in her body, and there was an extraterrestrial being who came forth and now is participating in that perspective and has inherited her memories just by virtue of coming into her brain, but nothing more.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
About numbers, I always felt like an amazing connection with numbers, and I feel that in many ways are signs from our higher perspectives telling us that we are on the right path. But I don't know if you would have any further insight about numbers, or if you connect with them.
I'm not a math nerd, if you're... No, I don't really connect with numbers myself personally, but I obviously think that they're very important because they're important to other people. So, what it is that certain numbers reflect truths within this universe, and obviously guides like to use them quite a bit. Times of day are the most likely to be used. So, like, for example, 11 is the light bearer number, and so that's the favorite of angels or 11th dimensional beings to use. They really like using 11s. Beautiful. So they'll, like, let's say that you're driving and you look at the clock and it says 11:11. That's your indication that your guides are there. So I think that it can be very beneficial if people key into numbers just because of meaning. That's really what we're all here for. What really makes our life worth living is to extract meaning from our existence. So obviously when you're lining up with these signs and lining up with numbers, then it adds a layer of depth, I think, to life, which makes it a lot easier to live here. So I'm more concerned with the fact that numbers seem to help people quite a bit to understand that they're not alone and to understand the true synchronicity that's going on. That's a beautiful life lived.
Sounds good. Regarding Egypt and the gods and the sun, do you have any information about this?
Syrians!
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, the Syrians had been interacting with that particular race for thousands of years. That's why, in fact, the pyramids are placed so perfectly with the origin of the Syrian race, which is in Orion's belt. So if you line up the pyramids, the center one goes directly to where their planet is, and it's lined up to such a degree that you can't even do that with modern instruments. So, yeah, it was a byproduct of them. There was tons, in ancient civilization there was so much interaction with extraterrestrial beings, it was incredible. But it doesn't really serve, I mean, what I should say is that knowledge served a few people that wanted control, so.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
So what people do, I'll explain, what people do when they want control is they take something, use it as an excuse to control someone, whether that's a religion, whether it's an interaction with an extraterrestrial being. They use it to their advantage, and they do whatever it takes to make it so that the other person is disadvantaged. That's just the byproduct of fear thinking. It's me wanting a vertical relationship with you where I'm on top and you're on bottom. We've experienced that. That's part of like humanness, is this idea that when you're in a space of fear, you want to be on top or on bottom. You start to see the world vertically instead of horizontally. And so a great many people who knew this information and obviously had interaction with extraterrestrial beings started to develop an inside relationship where they really only wanted it to be for them. and it benefited them when other people were in a lower space and more ignorant and all of these kinds of things, so that they could maintain their status and power. It comes from a false belief, ironically, and we're still operating according to it today. It's this lack of abundance belief. It's the idea that in order for some people to be rich, many must be poor. Many people who are in control and in power right now still believe in that, because they believe in limited resource. They don't understand that abundance is absolutely unlimited. So everybody could be a multi-billionaire. But when we don't know that, we suddenly start pushing against other people having power because we believe that's going to flip the scale again and we're going to be underneath them. So they sought to use a lot of this and cover over a lot of this extraterrestrial information and extraterrestrial memories and interaction with the human race based on the fact that they wanted to use that kind of covert information to their benefit. Make people believe they were completely alone, completely powerless, and everything else.
And about life inside the Earth, for one, I felt like a strong connection, as I mentioned yesterday. And then also I saw something that is not so positive about...
What?
Well, these not so positive forces making some things inside the Earth.
Hell yeah!
So both good forces and
Sounds
bad
like
forces.
Earth, doesn't it? I kind of have to laugh because that's like, this is the most contrasting environment ever. Like that's the thing. You've got the most beautiful, this living in tandem on Earth with the most ugly, and based on what vibration you're in, you see only that. You know, when you're in that negative vibration, the guy flicks a cigarette at you, you get in a car wreck, you know, I mean, it's like that. That's your reality when you're in a negative vibration, and then you switch it, and you fall in love, and suddenly you see the flowers blooming, and suddenly you see the birds flying, and suddenly you see, you know, somebody opens the door for you. That's your reality when you're in love. So it's this interesting reality here where everything is coexisting, and you're only a match to what you're currently vibrating. So, yes, I agree with you. There is all of this negative that is coexisting here with positive, and it's the same for the center of the Earth.
Oh, okay. And now that you mentioned that, when we focus negatively, so when somebody feels really, really negative and doesn't know how to move from there, what would you recommend?
Distraction.
Okay, this has been more of a language issue. Distraction as being distracted, or as...
Okay, so this is what I mean by that.
Okay.
Obviously, when somebody's in a really low state, anything you do to try to get out of that state is going to be resistance to the state you're in, and it's not going to get you out of it. So you have to essentially go the opposite direction and let yourself drop down in that hole as deep as you can possibly go. And that means drop into the emotion. So what that means is if I'm having a really horrible day, I have to basically go into that emotion and let it completely consume me. By virtue of doing that, I will be in a non-resistant state relative to it, and it will allow itself to leave on its own. So it's not like I really have to do anything.
Okay.
So that's step one. But what I suggest to people, because you create your own reality with your mind, right? So a lot of people who know that start to get real panicked when they're thinking negative thoughts and when they're in a negative space, because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to line up with this terrible stuff, right? So we start panicking on top of the panic. So if we could just allow ourselves to distract ourselves, that means take your attention off whatever thoughts or things that you're thinking that's causing you to feel pain, put it on something else. Then that's what you need to do, because what you'll notice is that will pull your vibration up just enough so that you might be a match to a positive thought or something like that. My favorite is to just put on movies. Like Legally Blonde is one of my favorite movies for that, because it's absolutely nothing like my existence. So when I'm having a really bad day and I cannot focus positively, I'll just be like, boop, boop, and I'll watch Legally Blonde. Because watching her traipse around in pink high heels always puts me in a good mood.
That's so interesting. You know, I had a time in which I kind of was tired of being a warrior, and I started, you know, listening Britney Spears and trying to learn something different from life that is not to be a warrior. And it did help bringing all some of that information so that I can relate to life in a different way. So that's so interesting. Okay, thank you. And now about your synchronization workshops, would you like to mention about that?
How long do you want me to talk about that for? Oh no, don't get me on a passion subject. Okay, so yeah, I do these synchronization workshops, which are my favorite thing. And now my synchronization workshops are going to be in tandem with these intentional community expos. So my workshop will be the first day of the event, and then it'll be probably 2 to 3 days after that of this expo of anybody who has any idea that pertains to intentional communities, showing up there and offering whatever it is that they want to offer to the group. So I'm super excited about those. But the synchronization workshops, essentially, what it is it's me going and answering questions. But it's much more powerful than that. It's a collective healing experience. Because we've got a whole group of people, sometimes up to 500 people in an audience. Depends which audience, because some of them are more, some of them are less people. But what I'll do is kind of like this style. People will be sitting in the audience, and we'll pretend we're in grade school, and they raise their hands. And whoever lights up to me on a vibrational level has a question which closely matches the rest of the group. So I'll ask them up, and just like this, they'll ask me the question, and I'll answer it. And we can go back and forth, basically, until they are worked into a positive vibrational space. But if you understand the way that law of attraction works, you understand that you have the same vibration, if you were the person, to everyone else in the group. And so as I am working you through the issue, I am also working all 500 people through the issue. And so you'll watch a collective increase in the vibration. And we're doing that for about 6 hours, which is how long the workshop takes. So by the end of it, people are buzzing. I've had people that say that they can't sleep for 3 days after that. Their whole life shifts. And that most importantly, which is my favorite part of the whole thing, most importantly is that they're connecting with each other, which is what you were saying about soul groups earlier. Anybody who's going to be matched to that event is going to vibrate at a similar frequency. And so I have got these people from all over the planet who have felt isolated, and they come to these experiences, these workshops, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I made 7 friends. Now I have people in my life. I feel like somebody loves me for the first time. So this connection is really the most important thing. And so we can play the game of it feels good, but we can also play the game of, you know, when you look at this earth and how we're really being controlled by the powers that be, the whole thing is divide and conquer. It's not a joke. That is how you make people weak. You separate them. So this is a way for me to effect some serious change by connecting people, by bringing us back together, by harmonizing us. And when a person is in a harmonized state connected with other people, they never come into the vibrational frequencies of revenge and of powerlessness, which cause these kinds of problems. Someone who feels connected and who feels loved is not going to go shoot someone else. So it's our backdoor way of really uniting the earth.
And also being able to speak a different truth, right?
Yes.
That is, you know, we can talk at a deep level for healing. So it's not just talking about the movie you watch on television the last day. So it feels that is also important, the fact of connecting at that level, that is more meaningful.
Yeah, which is really the only way to connect in general. I have no patience for surface conversation. Did anyone notice? Yeah. No, I have no patience for that. It's not a real connection. The only kind of connection that I want to foster, or that's really healthy to foster in general, is intense intimacy, which is not something which we're used to. Which is what makes people a little bit nervous around me, I think. But, like, intimacy is everything, because oneness is the ultimate truth of this universe. And so, obviously, I don't need to talk about, we can talk about your clothes, or we can talk about whatever else, but the most important thing is that we're connecting in terms of our experience. And I'm really sharing all the totality of who I am with no reservations, and she's sharing the totality of who she is with no reservations, and so our hearts can meet in the center. That's the definition of intimacy. So it's my desire that all beings in existence have that with each other. No exceptions.
Wow.
But that is obviously created by a willingness to do that yourself, and it's it feels vulnerable, but let me tell you, it is the most freedom you can possibly experience in your life, to literally walk up to another human and being like, look, I don't care what you do to me, because a life of separation is worse than anything you could possibly do to me. So you just open it completely, all of it. And so at first, when you first do that, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna get killed, right? Because you think they're gonna jam a knife in, but it's the opposite vibration of what you're doing. When you open yourself up to people, they can't do that. They can only do that in response to your fear and your resistance. So if you open yourself up like that, guess what happens? They do the exact same thing. They go, oh, thank God, somebody's giving me a permission, to meet them at the center. Somebody is giving me permission to be really accepted for who I am. Somebody's giving me permission to speak my truth. Somebody's giving me permission to be loved. And that kind of intense sharing, which does take place at these workshops, is like so addictive and intoxicating. I like to joke about the fact that when I come back, it's like, I'll get really tired and I'll be like, I want to go home, but I'll be here for 2 days, and I'm like, where are we going next?
And you have one coming up, it's online, right? The next
I have one online, yes. It's going to be on December 21st. It's going to be on the solstice.
Oh, wow,
So, yeah.
Nice. So hopefully this interview would be up long before.
And then the next one in person is going to be in Atlanta in February.
Beautiful, and we should also see if we can do something in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So if people is interested,
LA
please.
needs it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we were talking yesterday also. I've been living in Hollywood for 3 years, not right now, but and we were talking, you know, the media and everything.
I lasted 2 weeks there. 2 weeks.
It's hard. It's hard.
And that was really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if you are interested in having a synchronization workshop in Los Angeles, please comment here, and it would be awesome to have that experience there.
Oh, I'm coming to get you.
Yeah. Okay, and would you like to say your websites?
Yeah, my website is no, I wouldn't. What am I saying? Okay, let me think about this. I think that's probably like a frustrating way to go about it, to type into the search bar, because I don't even like to do that. So like the best way to go about finding me is to just go to Google and type in Teal Scott. Because if you do that, the first thing that comes up is my website, which is consequently www.thespiritualcatalyst.com, but it's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
And then my book is also available on the website, and my second book is soon to be released as well. So
Nice.
I've got a lot of stuff coming out. I also put out videos every Saturday, if any of you want to subscribe to that. It's Ask Teal is my video series. And on YouTube, I think the channel is called The Spiritual Catalyst channel. So if you'd like to go subscribe to that, I answer viewers' questions. Every week I select one, and then I do a video answer of that question. So it's quite interesting. You might want to subscribe.
And last message that you would like to share today for the people watching?
Don't be afraid to just be you. I feel like the number one issue that we have here is that we're so afraid that we're going to get rejected for who we really are, that we spend our lives just trying to develop a false self. That's essentially what we're all doing. We want to develop this false self so we're accepted by other people, but in the process we condemn ourselves. And we're absolutely miserable, because we have to pretend to be someone other than who we are. And it's my promise to you that if you actually allow yourself to be you, yeah, sure, you're probably going to lose a lot of people that are around you right now who only accept you for who they want you to be. But the reality is, if you start to become you, everyone around you will start to become the people who love you for who you are. So it's not like when they leave, nothing's going to come fill that space. In fact, the law of this universe is create a space and it will be filled. The universe seeks to fill spaces. So once you become truly who you are, and those people who don't accept that exit your reality, an entire new group who do completely accept you and your reality will flow into that space, and you will feel more supported and more wonderful in your own skin than you could possibly imagine. So really take the time to ask yourself who you really are, what you really feel, what you really believe, and what you stand for. Because becoming the reflection of that in this life is potentially the most important thing you could do for your happiness.
We need that, right?
Yeah.
We need each person
Yes, we do.
to share who they are. So thank you for sharing that.
We not only need each other, we are each other. We can't forget that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Teal. It was a pleasure coming here. I knew that it was something I had to do, and now I understand totally why. And I'm happy to be able to share this with people. Thank you for the interview.
Me too. Love you guys.
So, well, I would like also to invite you, if you are in Los Angeles, to come to my healing center, where we have a community to support each other. You can come for your own healing, or you can come to learn Reiki or shamanism, crystal healing, EFT. My website is reikiwellbeing.org. So I look forward to meeting with you, and thank you for watching.